Yeah, this is certainly no accident, Chris and Cynthia. We had two senators, a member of Congress, and the governor in North Texas today. It's the same day early voting begins in the Super Tuesday primary.
How are you?
I'm well. Good to see you.
Senator John Cornyn in Fort Worth, Senator Ted Cruz in Irving, Congresswoman Kay Granger in Fort Worth, and Governor Greg Abbott posting on Facebook about crisscrossing North Texas. A coincidence or proof? Republicans know they cannot take a single Texas vote for granted.
I think Texas is a battleground, and it's clear that national Democrats have set a target on the state of Texas.
We sat down with Cruz 2 weeks ahead of Super Tuesday, the first day of early voting. He told us the biggest lesson Republicans should have learned from his 2.6 percentage point win over Beto O'Rourke is how much turnout matters.
Texas Democrats in 2018 more than doubled their turnout, increased it more than 100%, from 1.8 million all the way up to 4 million. That is incredible. That is unprecedented. And thankfully, we managed to turn out 4.2 million Republicans.
Here's how Cornyn described that 2018 narrow Cruz victory.
I think it was a 2x4 to the side of the head. It was a wake-up call that I think Republicans had gotten too complacent.
He was in Fort Worth talking about a bill he sponsored that he says will lower prescription drug prices. Cruz met with Irving business owners, Granger was touting an endorsement, and Abbott is campaigning with Republicans running for the state house. Cornyn said Texas Republicans realize complacency will lead to a loss. So even with a full 9 months until the general election, blanketing the state, talking to Texans matters. Now, Senator Cruz told me today that the last 6 weeks of his campaign, when he toured the state on a bus doing rallies everywhere, he believes were really key to his victory. And he thinks that's a model for what Republicans are going to have to be doing here in 2020. Getting out, talking to other Republicans and telling them if they like the way things are going, particularly when it comes to the economy in Texas, vote Republican. Of course, Democrats are going to be saying, if you want change, you got to vote Democrat. And so the key to this whole thing in November is going to be who can convince the most amount of voters to get out and actually participate.
And you mentioned turnout. Early voting began today. My husband went to our polling site. He called it underwhelming, said not a lot of people there today. But you have an interesting theory.
Well, there might be some people here in Texas who are saying, you know what, I don't want to waste my vote. And here's what I mean when I say that. You don't quite know who's going to be on the ballot come Election Day, Super Tuesday, because there's a chance that between now and then some people could drop off. So there might be some Texans who are saying, I need to see a little bit more. I need to see what happens in Nevada and South Carolina before I actually make my decision.